My name is Dariusz Grabka. I have a director level responsibilities for research and innovation and development at Purolator. My team is throughout between Windsor and London and Montreal. We have a presence, like a distributed presence all throughout Ontario and Quebec. About 20 people, software developers, mechanical engineers, project leaders. The two focus areas would be probably new digital products, so new digital capabilities for Purolator, so either building mobile applications or software systems to help them with existing problems, or places where digitization or adding a new capability would be really impactful. One of the very first projects we did for Purolator was take over the development of their last mile delivery driver app. So we did a POC of like, hey, imagine we really empower the delivery driver with a better application that did more of what they needed to do every day instead of relying on a third-party tool. How would that impact? And it was really, really successful. And now we're looking to expand that mobile app within Purolator and its usage. Another thing that we're really focusing on is robotics, autonomous vehicles, automation in various ways. There's so many opportunities for that in a large organization like Purolator. There's existing teams that really do a great job of, like, you have these big hubs that you build in major metro centers, but then there's smaller hubs or terminals within smaller communities that maybe aren't right for, you know, the big automation type efforts. So what kind of smaller robotics or smaller automations can you introduce to those that add like the most amount of value? We talk about a concept called cobotics. So like, can a robot assist with something that a human can do? A kind of futuristic but really understandable way example of this is exoskeletons. So if you throw an exoskeleton on somebody who lifts boxes all the time, the exoskeleton doesn't have to be particularly advanced. It just has to be enough to help lift, maybe guide you in the right lifting direction or whatever. So that was an example of a project we did this year where we researched some exoskeleton options in Quebec and hope to inform Purolator and its future usage of it. So that was really exciting. So my background is primarily from startups. So I grew up in the KW startup thing, post BlackBerry, all these small startups in very niche, interesting industries popped up, and I worked for a few of them, and it's been really great for my career. And then at some point, I had an opportunity to join a much more established, larger organization like Purolator. And it's been a really, really great move in the sense that large established organizations have just as many interesting problems as the startups do, except they have trouble attracting talent. Like, we all want to work for these small dynamic organizations, but really they may be struggling with sales and marketing or not working out, not because of your efforts or the technology behind them, but because of just other market factors. While these large organizations, they kind of have the market figured out. Like, Purolator has a very stable customer base, it's growing, it's expanding, and then now it needs help with technology and innovation. And I highly recommend anybody who's interested in kind of a longer term career to look at more established Canadian organizations like grocers, logistics companies, even the banks. You know, they need high tech talent just as anybody else does. My experience with a large company like this is that not only are they open to new ideas, they're thirsty for the talent to actually execute on it. You know, they are there's an established core line of business that everybody's very comfortable with and optimizes, but then there's all sorts of opportunities, new business strategies, new business opportunities that need people, and they want somebody to come in and brave that fight. I'm sure there's challenges in terms of process or funding or whatever, you know, kind of like big company problems, but the energy and the support is definitely there. Yeah, I've been very much lucky at Purolator to have those opportunities. Like, right away, they're like, oh, here's your list of 70 problems, pick a couple and please make some progress, and we'll be very, very happy with you, you know, as compared to a different setup. Being at the Commons and just sort of being exposed to a different way of thinking has been really beneficial, I think, to me, especially in my role at a large organization. You can very easily get kind of caught in just the big company way of doing things. Awesome. So coming to the Commons every once in a while and realizing, oh yeah, people are doing meetups and peer-to-peers and just approaching things from a slightly more small company standpoint, or like doing amazing things with very few employees. You just get reminded of that, and that's really, really, I think, nice to have that integration. I like to think that Purolator can add some value to this ecosystem as well. Like, we sponsored a hackathon whenever that was, like a couple of months ago, just to sort of give back to the community that way, and then take from the community in terms of like that energy and ideation and whatnot. So Purolator has been at Catalyst Commons for 2 years now, and it'll be 2 years in September. We moved in pretty much right away after forming the department. partly because the team is, there's quite a few people in Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, but also further southwestern Ontario, people in Windsor, London, St. Thomas area. KW is pretty good for that group as well, because we don't necessarily have to travel to Mississauga or Toronto to do in-person meetings. I like the space here partly because we can bring in vendors, we can bring in other members of the company to a nice, attractive, inviting space to do other meetings or pitches or whatever the case is. Catalyst Commons is part of a broader Catalyst complex, which is this inner city but industrial redevelopment with free parking and across the street from where Tim Hortons, which I think is very important for everyday life. It's great. It's a community of technology companies and a restaurant and a coffee shop that just makes you feel very at home working here, which is kind of interesting to say, like post-pandemic. But I think people were looking for those kind of intermediary spaces where one day you're working at home, another day you're working at the office. Is maybe something in the middle where it's a kind of a open, more free-form workspace that you can have a private office at, but there's also shared co-working spaces and just physical spaces where you can sit down, work, get together with other people. I really appreciate the espresso machine. I have one at home. I enjoy making my espresso. I enjoy doing that down here as well. The staff is really, really friendly and hospitable, and has been encouraging in anything we like to do together. We ran a food collection, a food drive last year as part of Purolator's Tackle Hunger initiative, and it was really great to have the staff help with that. And we ended up doing this thing where we cut up a whole bunch of watermelon and gave out watermelon in kind of as part of a summer activity while we're collecting food, and it was great. And we ended up raising almost 500 pounds and a few $100 worth of donations because of the event that the team organized, and that was really helpful and awesome. One thing I really like about being here, both at Catalyst Commons and in this part of Kitchener-Waterloo, is that it's very student friendly. We have quite a few co-op students and just people finishing, new grads, people finishing their educational career, and an environment like this is very hospitable, I think, to new grads, to students, people on their co-op term. And that's been really attractive in terms of hiring and attracting new talent. One thing we like or have taken advantage of is the fact that we're in Belmont Village. So if we need to go out for a team lunch, go hit up Arabella Park or Casa Rugatino, we've been doing that a little bit more now that the pandemic's over, and that's been really wonderful. Being on the Iron Horse Trail just gives an opportunity to go for one-on-one walks or lunchtime walks or whatever the case is, and I think that's an attractive asset of the location here. So Purolator just recently announced a $1.x billion investment in electrifying our fleet and helping reduce carbon emissions for the company in Canada, and that's something that the Digital Lab team here in Kitchener has been very much a part of. The broader team has been introducing electric bikes, low-speed vehicles in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, and Ottawa. That's really exciting. I think we're very much on the leading edge of that revolution in Canada on the electrification of our fleet, and we're doing it in a non-traditional way. So rather than just taking like these big trucks and saying, okay, now we're going to place the big trucks with electric big trucks with all the problems of like the large batteries and difficulty charging, we're actually going to smaller vehicles that can serve more urban communities and looking to re-optimize the routes to take advantage of those vehicles. And seeing the e-bikes like in the community in Toronto and Montreal has been really cool. Like one of the couriers mentioned that he got a loud applause as he biked by, because people were like, this is really interesting, really innovative. And that's been really encouraging. The software team is looking at doing things like writing our own carbon capture calculator, which doesn't sound all that crazy, but you realize that it's very, very difficult to measure how much carbon is actually created by delivering a single parcel, unless you have all sorts of insider information and knowledge about, make all sorts of assumptions around that. So generally those calculations are done with averages of averages, so it's less exciting. But we want to get to the point where as you're checking out on Shopify and you're choosing to ship with Purolator, you see exactly what the greenhouse gases or the carbon emissions are going to be for that parcel, and maybe you can have a greener option by doing a shipment one day later or whatever the case is. So we hope to kind of enable that in the future with our software team.